Hi listeners, before we get going in today's episode, I just wanted to talk to you for a moment about an awesome guy. This is Toby Fomes, one of our Patreon patrons, who is in fact Explorer of the Week, and this episode is dedicated to you, Toby. Thank you so much for all the help and support that you give us to help make this podcast a reality. And you help us, of course, through our Patreon as one of our patrons. And that's a patron at Explorer of the Week level. Hence, you're getting this mention at the beginning of the show. Now, if you listeners would also like to get a mention, just like Toby has, all you have to do is go to patreon.com/aliens explored and choose a tier to suit you. If you particularly want to be Explorer of the Week, then make sure it's an Explorer of the Week or above, and help us make this podcast in the future. We love and appreciate each and every one of our listeners, especially our Patreon patrons. So, yeah, Toby Fomes, this episode is dedicated to you. And this week's episode is going to be about some documents that have been found back in the 1980s, called the Majestic Documents. These are secret memos from the US government talking about UFOs and the study of them, potentially even the assassination of JFK. So join myself and Neil here on Aliens Explored as we discuss the Majestic Documents. Aliens Explored is a weekly podcast exploring famous and obscure cases of UFO sightings, alien abductions and other strange events from both a believing and a skeptical perspective, whilst keeping an open mind. I'm Stu Jackson, a professional actor and amateur ufologist with a particular interest in the crop circle phenomenon. I'll be debating that otherworldly visitations are real. The truth is out there.
And I'm Neil Kelly. I'm a professional actor as well and used to work for the military as an intelligence analyst. I'll be arguing from a more doubtful point of view. I mean, it's all a bit far-fetched, isn't it? Hello listeners, and welcome back to another episode of Aliens Explored, your weekly look at the mysterious skies and smoke-filled rooms and forged documents, or perhaps genuine documents, or genuine documents made to look like forgeries, or all sorts of evidence in support of or debunking paranormal and extraterrestrial phenomena. I'm joining you on this sweltering hot day. My name is Neil Kelly, one of your presenters.
And I'm your other presenter, Stu Jackson. I'm managing to keep cool at the moment. It really is absolutely sweltering out. So keep safe, everyone.
Well, you know, I have got a desktop fan and I haven't got it turned on in the interests of sound quality.
Much appreciated.
That's my dedication. But I've got the window open and there is a crying baby out there. So, well, it's not crying, right? And now there's a jet going over. So, yeah, that's I think I've got as far as I can.
Such is the way of things. Well, I can't hear a crying baby, nor can I hear a jet.
Well, these are the sacrifices we make, listeners.
And I'm pretty good at editing these things out anyway, to be fair. So yeah, so we're good. We're good.
In fact, editing it to make me say things that I didn't actually say. Why'd you got a sample of my voice?
There's an idea. No.
Yeah.
Honestly, I wouldn't. Well, obviously our regular listeners know that's exactly what I don't do.
Because that's one of the hazards of artificial intelligence, isn't it? That now people can sample our voices and make us say anything, so they can put our voices onto other people or onto cartoon characters or whatever.
It's an issue. Certainly, for us as actors, it sort of came to my mind a few years ago now, where a lot of the CGI stuff was coming in. And of course, like at the moment with CGI, actors like us would still voice a character. So it basically it's like doing animation. But effectively, they can just scan you and present you like it's almost realistic at the moment. Not quite. They're just a little touch off being totally realistic on screen. But no, I think, you're absolutely right. The point's going to come whereby an actor's job will just be to get scanned and provide a voice sample, and that's it. Everything else will be done by computer, and it's a terrifying thought.
Well, I think we're going to go the way of musicians, that musicians are struggling with the fact that people can just get their music for free from so many different sources, and people know how to get movies for free, and people are going to learn how to make movies without actors. Where our value is going to be in live performance and interactive performance. That's where we're gonna. We're going to be reduced to. I was going to say, but that's by no means. We're going to go back to what we always did for hundreds of years. We're going to be limited to.
That's it. I think you're absolutely right. And you know what? I've had many arguments with actors over the years about something I feel very strongly passionate about, is that, of course, stage acting is completely different from screen. I mean, even within screen acting, television acting is totally different from cinema acting. And, within live performances, theatre acting is totally different again from immersive acting. And we know that ourselves. And, and a lot of actors, of course, tends to be the untrained ones, I've noticed, tend to say, oh, no, acting's just acting. Really, really.
It's not. I mean, there are actors like David Caruso from CSI Miami, who's regarded as a great television actor, but not as a great movie actor. And there are people like Anthony Hopkins, who are regarded as great movie actors, but not TV actors.
Yeah,
there are different disciplines within those. And within TV and within film acting, there are different disciplines. So
totally.
Yeah. So
anyway, I've been meaning to ask how you are today, because you've literally just come here hot foot from the dentist, haven't you?
I have, from the dental hygienist, which is isn't
that a toothbrush?
That's a toothbrush, but actually, it's usually a more painful experience than the dentist.
And was it painful experience?
It was a bit, and I've had COVID as well. And I'm fully recovered from it.
Just in case we needed proof.
Yeah, so I did choke a few times when I had the suction thing and everything in my mouth, but she was nice about it.
Okay. Okay. But you're good to talk, are you?
I'm good to talk, yes.
Excellent. Because what we're talking about today is, again, it's one of those things we have touched on occasion in previous episodes. A collection of documents, collectively known as the Majestic Documents. Now, this purports to Majestic 12, which was a group of shadowy figures,
scientists, military people, government officials,
all hidden and away and investigating UFOs. Now, aside from our brief mentions of the Majestic Documents, outside in the wider world, outside the confines of this podcast, Neil, had you heard about Majestic?
I don't think I had. I mean, I'd certainly heard about the I think everyone listening here has heard of the stories that there was a Roswell crash and a spaceship of some kind was recovered, and that the US military has been able to reverse engineer some of the technology, including anti-gravity propulsion systems and that sort of thing. I know the Majestic Documents purport to be relating to that, proof that they've actually done it. I as you know, I don't really believe that the US military has reverse engineered extraterrestrial technology, but I'm very interested into why these stories circulate. And I do wonder if I'm not nudging into conspiracy theory territory here, because we are talking about the Cold War when all this happened, whether the US military did have some kind of agenda to have these documents going out, documents that they could plausibly deny any knowledge of, or claim were false, but would be enough to worry the opposition, the Soviet Union mainly, and to a lesser extent at that time, Red China, that actually America has vastly superior technology to them.
Well, something you're undoubtedly not going to be aware of, because I only just became aware of it myself within the last couple of hours. There has been as happens all the time, there are lots of freedom of information access requests going on all the time. But actually, I heard about one through Reddit, of all places, very recently, where the government has basically admitted that, yes, we've got UAP materials and we've been studying them.
Who said that? The US government?
The US government.
But there will also be someone popping up to say, no, we haven't. That was false information.
I don't know. That's one to speculate over. Maybe that's the subject of a future episode, perhaps.
But the Cold War was always a shadow war, and it was always bluff and counter bluff. So you wonder if the role of the debunkers. Reading about Majestic, of course, the name Philip J. Klass came up again, whose job it was basically to say, no, this is all a load of nonsense. But, I wonder if the Soviets will see, oh, yes, of course, they've got Philip J. Klass to say it's not true, because that's his job to say it's not true. But that doesn't mean it's not true.
I mean, the fact that we've got evidence that Philip J. Klass tried to bribe people into recanting stories.
Yeah.
I've got to say, as debunkers go, I don't think he's a very good one. Oh, that said, of course, we all know that all the media has to do is get a whiff that, oh, look, here's a mundane explanation, and that's good enough for them. Even if it doesn't stand up to any scrutiny. And I'll refer back to my usual examples of Doug and Dave in the crop circle community.
Yeah,
perfect example of that.
But believing or demonstrating that you have a next generation technology can be overwhelming. I mean, when I worked in military intelligence, I think I witnessed the trigger that was the end of the Cold War. That when the Israelis invaded the Lebanon in 1982, they were able to take out the air defense systems that the Syrians had there in the space of an afternoon, basically using drones. They would fly up a drone, the Syrian air defenses would track it, they'd shoot a missile at it and destroy it, but before the drone was destroyed, it would coordinate where the radar beam was coming from and send that information back to its base, where they would launch a surface-to-surface missile. So we could hear the Syrians on the airwaves cheering that they'd shot down an enemy aircraft, and the next thing, silence. You hear the other side saying, hello, anybody there? They were wiped out. Their air defense system was wiped out in an afternoon. And what was worrying for the Soviets was it was an exact replica of the air defense system they had in Eastern Europe. So suddenly they realised we've got no defences. We're totally vulnerable to a NATO attack. And we were monitoring traffic, and we saw dozens of Soviet generals were flying out to Syria to find out what the hell was going on. I mean, it wasn't even down to human error. It was this air defense system was manned by East German technicians, highly trained people. They were in charge of it. So again, in Eastern Europe, it would have been highly trained East German technicians in charge of it. So this idea that you suddenly got this technology, which was basically a drone that's capable of coordinating where a radar beam is coming from and relaying that information back in the few seconds before it's destroyed. That was enough. I think that was what brought down the Soviet Union. They suddenly realised, no, we're outgunned.
Okay, well,
a few years later, the whole thing caved in.
That's a good theory, and one I definitely have no experience or knowledge to draw on, to counter. But we've gone a little bit off topic, as is our way here.
Well, it's kind of, I'm touching on the topic of why a government might put out rumours that they've got some kind of weapon system that they haven't actually got, but maybe they have. And there'll be all these famous debunkers around saying, "Oh no, of course we haven't got anything like that." No, but that's what he always says.
Well, I'm not aware of any specific Majestic documents that talk about us having technology. They all seem to be around the premise that the government, that basically it was a government body or committee formed to study UAPs, UFOs, and specific. So there's quite a wide variety of documents, but I want to focus, if it's okay with you, on just three of them in specific. Now, the first one is that there's, in fact, well, it's not just one document, but there are a number of documents that suggest that MJ12, or Majestic 12, as the committee, was formed around about the same time, or slightly after the Roswell crash. Now, it's easy to jump to a conclusion. So basically, that they were formed in September of 1947. And the Roswell crash, as we know, 75 years ago. We've just had the anniversary, like literally days ago, as we're recording, was July of 1947. So from July to September, basically, that's when Majestic was formed. Now, to my mind, so the idea that there wasn't a group of people studying UFOs or UAPs, because we know that UFOs exist. What we don't know is whether or not flying saucers driven by extraterrestrial pilots exist.
Yeah,
we know that there are things in the skies that are unknown.
And that might actually not be a vehicle. That might just be an unexplained aerial phenomenon.
Hence why UAP exactly is a better terminology.
It's a broader and vaguer term, isn't it?
So the idea, the concept that a government at the time, and particularly the military arm of a government, aren't studying them is baffling. I mean, of course they're going to be studying them. So the fact that, yes, initially this group was a secret group, I can totally accept that. Because the government were claiming that they weren't studying them at the time.
Yeah, because they also claimed that there hadn't been a UFO crash in Roswell, didn't they?
Well, that's the interesting thing. If, as many of these documents do suggest, MJ12 was formed only a few short months after the Roswell crash, doesn't that lend a lot of credence to Roswell?
It does, but also, if Roswell didn't happen, then it would be a reason to say, well, actually, this committee has been set up, this Majestic 12, to analyse it, so it must be true.
If it really was a weather balloon kind of thing.
Yeah, but actually, it is true. It was a UFO, and look, they've set up this special committee, this secret committee to investigate with a view to harvesting the technology.
I mean, I know you keep saying that about reverse engineering, but there's nothing at all that I'm aware of, at least, to suggest that Majestic was about reverse engineering or harvesting, or you keep saying that.
Well, from a military perspective, if if something crashes in your territory, which is based on technology that you don't have, you will want to look at that technology and see if it's something worth having, and if it is worth having, how can we develop our own version of it?
I'm thinking Majestic was perhaps a bit more broad scoping in that there are things invading our airspace.
Yeah.
It might be a natural phenomena. It might be an optical illusion. It might be, we don't know what it is, but there is something. Here's a committee to give us the answers, to sort out what it might be. Now, so putting Roswell to one side, and I can see the whole concept, yes. I mean, I don't believe for one moment that Roswell was just a weather balloon. I do believe it was a crashed alien vessel of some description. But hypothesizing, let's say it was just a weather balloon or an experimental craft. The public interest in UFOs might have highlighted the fact of how many UFOs there are being sighted, because when you do get an event, you get people coming forward saying, well, I saw this, well, I saw that, well, I saw the other.
Well, you get people coming forward even when there hasn't been an event.
You do, but when there is a major event that's widely publicised, you get a spike in reports. Now, some of those are undoubtedly going to be people just looking for attention. But I believe that the vast majority of them are people who feel more comfortable coming forward because there has been this other event that kind of validates what they have seen. Otherwise, if you experience, I'm going to say, any form of supernatural or paranormal event, you believe instantly, you think you're the only one. You feel very isolated. You feel very
special. The fairies have chosen me to
special, but not in a good way. But you do certainly feel isolated, and that people are not going to take you seriously. That people are not going to believe you. But then, if there's something big in the media that is at least similar to what you've experienced, it can give you the courage to come forward. And I think that's when you get these spikes in reports.
Or just the way the media work, that if you just went to a local newspaper or radio station and said, well, I saw this thing in the sky, they say, well, so what? But if there's suddenly this big story breaking and they say, well, and we've got a local perspective on that as well. Stu Jackson from wherever noticed that his milk had gone sour.
You're absolutely right. There is that aspect to it as well. But it is worth noting that it's not just the reporting that goes up, it is the actual people coming forward initially that goes up massively. And in fact, news desks are often respond to that themselves. So, yes, they'll get like drip fed. Oh, I saw a UFO the other day. Oh, I saw this strange light in the sky. If you're getting one or two a week, that's nothing. Yeah. But if suddenly you're getting 20 a day, then that's newsworthy.
So let's talk about the timeline of these MJ12 or Majestic 12 documents. That it was in May 1987. It was reported that British ufologist Timothy Good claimed to be in possession of 1950s era UFO documents.
Yes.
And they purported to reveal a secret committee of 12 supposedly authorized by the United States President Harry Truman at the time in 1952 to explain how the crash of the spacecraft at Roswell had been concealed back in 1947, and how the recovered alien technology could be exploited, how the United States should engage with extraterrestrial life, and basically everything to do with whatever. So it was in the 80s that this came out, wasn't
it? That's right. That's when we became aware of them, first of all. Now, by that time, of course, we had Project Blue Book.
Back in the 1950s?
No, by the 80s. By the 80s. So the government were a little bit, at least, more forthcoming in admitting that they were studying UFOs.
Mm.
And I mean, not just the US government, but over here as well. There was a public acknowledgement that UFOs were being studied. But yeah, you're absolutely right. It wasn't until the 1980s, which kind of makes you wonder, well, where were these documents sat for 30 plus years?
Well, secret documents are they are secret. They stay out of people's sight. They can get leaked eventually. I mean, quite often they have a statute of limitations on them, that they're only secret for a certain amount of time. In Britain, obviously not. Things stay secret for hundreds of years. Things never see the light of day.
And do you know what? Right, if I was running a Black Ops, I'd have something like that as a policy, saying, "Oh yes, after 30 years, everything becomes public anyway, and then just the stuff you don't want releasing, you just don't make it public, because you can then say, well, if we had it, it'd be public by now."
Yeah, or it was accidentally destroyed. Well, we keep having these mysterious fires of 29-year-old documents.
Yes, well, that happens an awful lot, even over in this country, especially over MP investigations. But that's a whole other thing. But yeah, so another document I wanted to touch on was the Eisenhower Brief. Now, this was November of 1952. This is a document, much of it, so the only copy that I've been able to see, much of it massively redacted. But it does suggest that Eisenhower was being briefed directly by this Majestic group, this MJ-12. I don't know if you've come across that document.
Not the specific document, but I can see there's a reference to... no, I haven't seen a reference to Eisenhower either. It's all Harry Truman.
Well, wasn't Eisenhower in office late 52?
I guess because Truman came to power in 45, didn't he? So after when
so
Roosevelt
Truman would
died.
have set up Majestic, but
yeah. So I guess Truman was a 2-term president, and then Eisenhower would have been a 2-term president.
Yeah, Eisenhower sort of was. Yeah, it kind of kept it up. Was still being briefed. But the real, and of course, JFK after that. But there's a real, and I think this is a little bit of a smoking gun one. The third document, and it's what's known as the burned memo on this, because this is a collection of documents that were allegedly salvaged from a fire. Where they were just going to be, burnt. And it connects JFK's interest in UFOs. It talks about, it uses the code names for JFK. But yeah, they talk about his interest, and he basically is getting too interested in this stuff, and he's asking for too much information.
Well, what's the code name for JFK?
Oh, do you know what? I can't remember off the top of my head now. I'd have to look this up. Bear with me.
Okay.
I know we talked about, because we had an episode, of course, didn't we, talking about JFK's death. And was it orchestrated because he was interested in UFOs? So this is like the document that we referenced in that.
Yeah, I can think of all sorts of reasons. Well, there are all sorts. You watch the Oliver Stone film, all sorts of reasons why JFK was assassinated, but I don't think it mentions his interest in UFOs. It was things like his betrayal of the Bay of Pigs invasion of Cuba and his reluctance to send ground troops into Vietnam. That sort of thing is held up as reasons why JFK was gotten rid of in favour of more of a good old boy who would send in the troops. That's what's in the Oliver Stone film. Anyway, that's what's put up. That JFK was looking at a way to disengage from Vietnam, and of course the the military-industrial complex that Eisenhower warned about actually wanted a war.
Yes. No, I'm struggling to find it. Sorry.
Okay,
but
I was just curious. I thought our listeners might.
So it's something
we'll have to
like
look it up.
silly, like Prince Charming, or it was something like that. I forget
like
what, but
like Boris Johnson was referred to as Big Dog, wasn't he?
That is that kind of thing. Anyway, this document does go on to, and again using kind of the code words at the time, to suggest that he should be taken out. And this, of course, this memo was dated 1963. And look what happened to JFK.
In 1963.
Behind the grassy knoll.
Yeah.
Well, no, it didn't happen to him behind the grassy knoll. But anyway. So, now I know there have been a lot of studies done on these documents over the years. And when I say study, things like the type of paper that they were typed onto, the type of ink that was used from the typewriter, the shape of the letters, and because from that they can work out what typewriter it was that wrote them. And of course you've got like standard sort of aging techniques. Those sorts of tests have been done on these documents and do show them to be of that time. So there we go. And do you know what? We've hit that time in the show when we kind of sum up our thoughts on this. Now, I'm gonna tell you this. This will come as no surprise to you or the listeners that. No, I'm absolutely convinced that first of all, Majestic existed because, of course, the US government's going to have a department for investigating aerial phenomena that it can't explain, and I'm pretty convinced that they were maybe behind the death of JFK for for sticking his nose in where it wasn't wanted.
Yeah, after all, he's only the president of the United States. He's only everyone's boss.
Well, yeah, but they're not necessarily the people running the things, as we know. But there we go. What do you think anyway, Neil?
I'm sceptical about the Roswell crash. I think that anyone who wanted to bolster the claim about the Roswell crash would invent committees that were supposedly looking into it and reverse engineering the technology and carrying out postmortems on the corpses of the alien crew. I can see that there would have been misinformation. I do agree with you that the Air Force, especially, and the air defense systems, will be very interested in anything that was in the skies that they're supposed to be defending that they can't identify, nor can they intercept, nor can they even keep on their radar for very long. So, of course, there would be some interest in that. I do wonder how much they speculated that this was extraterrestrial. I mean, I imagine as soon as radar was taken into use, people started seeing things on it that they couldn't explain. As soon as aircraft could fly to a certain height, they would notice all sorts of phenomena that they couldn't explain. I don't necessarily think that it's extraterrestrial, and I'm very dubious about the idea that somehow there's an X-Files department that's got a handle on all this. That there are men in black.
So you don't think Majestic existed then, or you do? I'm a bit confused now.
I believe that some documents were found, and I think it was all part of the sort of Cold War bluff and double bluff. Someone puts these documents out, someone denies that they're, or someone from the FBI writes bogus all over them, even though it seems to be classified top secret, US eyes only. That makes people even think, there's a cover up of something. You cover up things that It's bluff and double bluff, isn't it? That's how you play the Cold War game. You pretend you've got something, or you pretend you haven't got something, but making the enemy think you have got something, because the way you're denying that you've got something, you could drive yourself insane trying to second guess, and you lose lots of agents trying to send them into very strongly defended places, or trying to infiltrate to find out about something that may or may not exist. So I don't know. Yeah, if someone wanted people to believe that there had been an alien craft crash at Roswell in 1947, they would also they would have to tell you that there was some kind of committee investigating it, wouldn't it? Otherwise, people would say, well, if that crash happened, why is no one looking at it? You have to have it. That Majestic 12 has to exist to bolster the original Roswell crash story.
It's worth bearing in mind that at the time, nobody knew that Majestic existed. Like you say, it wasn't until the 80s that came out. The investigation into Roswell was officially done. I mean, we talk about it being Roswell. It was actually, the crash wasn't at Roswell, and there were two crashes anyway. But it wasn't actually at Roswell. We talk about it being Roswell because Roswell was the nearest Air Force base. Actually involved with a lot of atomic testing, but that's a whole other thing. Okay, well, what do you think, though, listeners? Do you agree with me? Are they a group very much like the X-Files? Yeah, I'll go with that. To study actual alien things, or do you agree with Neil that it's just a disinformation service out to make people think that they've got something they haven't? Or do you think it's something else entirely? Do write to us and let us know what you think. You can contact us via the usual means. You can email us, aliensexplored@gmail.com. You can find us on Facebook and Twitter by searching Aliens Explored and contact us that way. Or if you are one of our Patreon patrons, then you can get exclusive access to our Discord server, where you can chat with us and other like-minded people about this and any other of our episodes as well. But join us next time. Now, I think in the last episode, I mentioned that we were going to be talking about Roswell.
You put out misinformation about Roswell. I put out
misinformation on that because we're not going to be discussing. So
Philip J. Class has been in touch over our Patreon to debunk that claim.
He's given us a few grand. No, he hasn't. Absolutely not. No, but basically, so Roswell, I think, is just too big of a topic to discuss in a single episode, even an extended special episode. And it is indeed a very, very special episode, because our next episode, episode 102, comes out on the 28th of July. And of course, that is our 2-year anniversary. Well, our 2-year anniversary technically is the 31st of July, but that's as close as it gets for an episode release. So what we're going to be doing, Neil, we're going to be looking back over the last year and all the episodes we've done and picking out our highlights and sharing some memories. So that's one to look forward to. In addition to that, on the actual 31st of July, I know you're going to be travelling away on your holidays that day, aren't you, Neil?
I am, yeah. I'm off to Majorca.
Oh, very, very nice. Apparently the water in Majorca doesn't taste quite how it should. I've been told. But yeah, so you're going to
Do you remember that ad? It was a Heineken ad, wasn't it?
Yes, indeed, here in the UK.
The water in Majorca doesn't taste quite as it should.
Yeah.
No, the water in Majorca don't taste like what it ought to.
That's the one. So anyway, the reason
that's going back. That's nearly 40 years old. That
everyone take a drink of Heineken or something non-alcoholic, of course, of your choice, because we're even digressing at this point in the show. So yes, the reason I mentioned that is you're going to be incommunicado on the 31st of July. However, I'm going to be running live on Twitch an AMA session and ask me anything connected with, of course, with Aliens Explored. That's going to be over on the Hailing Frequencies Twitch channel. The link is in the description here. And that's going to be at 4 p.m. UK time. That's 10 a.m. Central Time, or wherever you are in the world, you can work it out from there, I'm sure. But yeah, so yeah, join us next time for a retrospective. Looking forward to that one. In the meantime, keep watching those old filing cabinets for any memos containing all sorts of secret information, and the skies.
The ones in smoke-filled rooms. They're the ones to go for. They're the ones to take a crowbar to.
Absolutely. Until next week. Take care for now.
Catch you next time. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Aliens Explored is a Fecal Films production in association with Juicy Falls. Music by Darren Mafucci and editing by Stu Jackson. Find us on Twitter or Facebook by searching Aliens Explored, or visit us on aliensexplored.com.